My name is not important, nor is my birth date or address. What is important to know is that I was once an ordinary being, just like you. The daily exposure to the horror and indecencies performed by society and the human race as a whole can change a man. It changed me. The intrusive rise of world war, poverty, murder, crime, and economic devastation have all somehow twisted the human condition beyond recognition, beyond repair. Now I call this place home, safe within the confinement of these four walls, to share with you another twisted tale of an otherwise ordinary mind. The Terrible Tale of Peter Cotton. The reanimation of the metal device buried deep within the dried-out pile of leaves, and the sound of crushing bones fused with tortured screams, now orchestrated from behind the metal tool shed. This time it was to be the right foot. Or was it the left foot, he thought to himself. 15-year-old Peter Cotton instantly lost all concentration and surrendered to the familiar cries that were now serenading him. He was about to perform the final cut on his latest victim when the rusty hacksaw slipped from his grotesquely huge hands. It bounced off of the floor and splashed a crimson spray everywhere inside the tiny metal shed. He peeled off his mother's gardening gloves and tossed them at the rotting corpse. Suspended from the ceiling hung the bloody and battered body of 12-year-old Becky Green, who had been reported missing 3 days prior. Peter Cotton slid open the metal door, inhaled a deep breath of the crisp nighttime air, and bolted for the back of the shed. The butcher apron that just about covered his stocky physique was now rippling in the winds and dripping with scraps of ripped skin, blonde hairs, and the innards of one unfortunate little girl. Only a few blocks away, Tamara Hickman stood facing her full-length mirror. She was admiring the way the lilac-trimmed dress complemented her soft cocoa skin. The matching velvet heels she bought on her most recent shopping spree added just the height she needed to lock lips with heartthrob Brian McKay tonight at her first high school semi-formal. Tamara began to fantasize about the all-star quarterback in such a manner that she found herself becoming sexually aroused. It was the annoying buzz from the digital clock on her dresser that brought her back to reality. She realized that her parents had not yet returned home from the Ash Wednesday services at St. Patrick's Church. She reached into her makeup bag and pulled out her cell phone. "Mom, where are you guys? It's after 6 o'clock and the dance starts at 7, she huffed. "I still have a few things I need to do, so if you're not home in 5 minutes, then I'm going to start walking." She pressed end. Tamara fumbled through lipstick, contact solution, a tiny can of mace, and other loose clutter to find her favorite eyeliner. She took one final look at herself in the mirror, brushed away the loose black curls from her face, and applied the final strokes to her lashes. It was not even 10 minutes later that her parents received what would be her final words. She carefully texted on the tiny keyboard as to not upset her freshly manicured nails. "I'm going to start walking to the dance. Don't worry about me. I called Madison and she said that her mom will pick me up on Sullivan Street. Love you guys. Bye." Peter could hear the little bunny struggling to escape from what he considered to be his most ingenious and painful trap to date. The little bunny is the term he coined to recognize the unfortunate victims that would wander too close to his parents' trailer on Bunny Trail Lane, or what the neighborhood kids nicknamed the Bunny Trail. "Here comes Peter Cotton. Neighbors say he's rotten. Lives in a house on the bunny trail. Better stay inside or he'll cut your tail," is what Peter kept chanting to himself as he headed for the back of the shed. His reputation was well known in the small mountainside town of Haven Ridge. Neighbors labeled him as the disturbed teenager who seemed to derive all sorts of twisted pleasures from torturing small animals like Old Lady Crawford's calico or the Bittner twins' female Pomeranian. Most of the time, Peter seemed content with the wild rabbits that would get trapped in his backyard. He would chop off the rabbits' feet or slice off their ears and even rip their tails off and wear them around his neck as a lucky charm. It was on this particular Easter holiday that the young killer felt that hunting rabbits seemed more suited for the Saturday morning cartoon characters and decided to challenge himself to a more difficult yet satisfying prey of the humankind. Tamara Hickman used the light from the densely scattered lampposts to check the time on her watch. There was just about 5 minutes left to get to Sullivan Street, and she was not going to make it if she continued on her current route. The only alternative was to take the shortcut down Bunny Trail Lane. "Hey, Maddie, I'm running a few minutes behind schedule. Guess I'll have to take the shortcut down the bunny trail. Wait for me, 'kay?" asked Tamara. There were not many homes on the bunny trail, and to make the matters worse, there were also no streetlights. The only way to see your way from one end to the other was to follow the porch lights that scattered either side of the streets, or to bring a flashlight. Tamara had everything in that tiny sequin clutch except the latter. She continued walking with brisk strides until she reached the last house on the block before Sullivan Street. It was the dilapidated double-wide where Peter Cotton lived. Tamara started to increase her pace as the corner came into view. The sidewalk became darker as the porch lights faded. She took out her BlackBerry and illuminated her path with the pale blue light. It was no match for the darkness, but it was better than nothing, she laughed to herself. There came a very disturbing sound heard over the laughter. Tamara stopped dead in her tracks. It sounded like the tortured cries of someone or something hurt, more like a small animal, maybe even a puppy. She always had the soft spot for a helpless animal. In fact, when Tamara was 10 years old, she had refused to eat or drink anything until her father agreed to rescue a beagle pup from the local shelter after watching his story on the local news. She still had the advantage of being Daddy's little girl, and she played that card whenever possible. It was definitely a puppy. There was the slight chance it could be her little guy, Barker. He might have snuck out the front door during her rush to leave the house, she thought. Tamara's heart started to race with conflict. She looked toward Sullivan Street just in time to see Madison's parents' silver Pathfinder pull up to the curb. The choice was not difficult at all. Brian McKay would have to wait a little bit longer before he would taste her vanilla malt lip gloss. Tamara lifted the hinge on the rusty metal gate that led to the home of Peter Cotton and headed for the oversized, dried-out pile of leaves. Peter quickly approached his little bunny from behind. He stopped momentarily to retrieve the archaic tape recorder that he left propped against the shed earlier that day. Next, he lifted the largest boulder he could find in the pile of rocks he had collected from the construction site next door. Peter raised it above his victim's head and brought it down on her skull like a blacksmith to his anvil. Tamara could hear someone coming. "Somebody please help me," she cried. She had tripped over some hidden barbed wire which perforated her ankles just above her velvet heels. She then fell face first into the leaves. The collected foliage had been sprayed heavily with some sort of an industrial-strength ant and roach killer. The immediate burn turned her radiant green eyes a painful blood red. The ground felt very cold and damp underneath the leaves. Tamara brushed over the dirt, feeling for some solid ground. She was making a desperate attempt to push her body upright when there came a snap, and metal collided with metal. The naive young girl, smitten by the love bug on her way to her debut high school dance, had broken her parents' golden rule. Never go near the Cotton trailer alone. The tears flooding her eyes burned with an acidic tint. They met with the blood on her upper lip and created an awful taste in her mouth. Tamara wanted to vomit. She shook spastically at the device that was tearing into her skin and confining her wrists. It appeared to be some sort of redesigned rabbit trap that had been placed dead center in the pile of leaves. Ironically, her cell phone, muffled by the dirt and leaves, began to ring and ring and ring and ring. Easter was only 4 days away, and Peter Cotton was feeling a heightened sense of euphoria. Ever since he was a child, Easter was nothing more than a disappointment because Peter Cotton was not like other children in the neighborhood. He had a debilitating allergy to any type of chocolate drinks, cookies, or candies. The slightest hint of cocoa in foods or even in the air would cause his throat to swell up. High fevers and chills were standard, and his entire body would break out in a severe case of hives. Peter was constantly being humiliated and teased by the other children. He would never be invited to the neighborhood functions such as other children's birthday parties or sleepovers because there was always the fear that he might get sick. Everything started to take its toll on Peter. The constant intervention from his overbearing parents, Roger and Jackie Cotton, in regards to his pleas for a normal childhood is what turned an innocent mind into what was now something sadistic and pure evil. "Mother, can I please have a chocolate bunny this year? I promise I won't get sick," he begged. The answer was always the same. Peter didn't understand that his parents were doing it for his own good. Instead, he would get bags of jelly beans, marshmallow peeps, and the goddamn white chocolate bunny. As the years passed and the child inside got older and grew angrier, The guiltless begging turned into violent tantrums and verbal thrashings. I want a fucking chocolate bunny this Easter, you bitch. Get that lazy-ass excuse of a father off the futon and down to the local Save More, or you assholes will regret it. It will only be a matter of time. This year I will have my chocolate bunny. Peter threatened in a tone that did cause Mr. Cotton to get his ass off of the futon, but not to grab his car keys. Instead, he grabbed his juvenile son by the throat with both hands. Roger Cotton was not a violent man, but he had had enough of his only son's bullshit. Peter could feel himself being lifted right out of his worn-out Pumas. On his way up, he fearlessly reached behind him and grabbed the butcher knife from the kitchen counter. Peter took an awkward grip of the handle and swung the blade. It cut off his father's left ear. Jackie Cotton screamed as the blood drained from the exposed vessels dangling from her husband's gaping hole. Roger dropped his demon seed child and then collapsed to the linoleum floor. "Happy Easter, Mommy and Daddy," Peter giggled as he plunged the knife into his pregnant mother's hip. Tamara awoke to the pungent smell of rotting carrion blended with a nauseating scent of mud and urine attacking her nostrils. There was still the nasty taste of blood in her mouth. It produced a tsunami-like feeling in her stomach. Her heart was racing. Every muscle and joint felt knotted like a twisted rope. The life nectar coursing through her body ran cold as if under attack by an army of icy-footed ants. It was only a matter of seconds before the impending disaster regurgitated from her esophagus. "It sounds like you've made yourself some dinner," a voice chuckled.